Hi and welcome back to 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗧. Today guys, we're diving into the world of XRP. After a recent pump today, we're going to be analysing whether or not this is going to be continuing to the upside or whether or not we should be expecting a small pullback before we continue our way to the upside. Guys, as we get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗧. With that said, done and out of the way, let's dive down into this daily chart for XRP. Okay, so we are paired up with Tether and we are using Binance as our data source, so you can replicate this if you want to using TradingView. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about briefly this performance, where things are going slightly longer term, and then analyze what's been going on today and what we could expect to happen next. So as you can see, we did reach a pretty good high point up here in April. So 14th of April, we basically reached this high point of, if I just get that right, $1.96. Then we started to see this pull back to the downside. We double tap on this bottom area here, finding good support on 51.5 cent. And we did actually bottom out just below that with a wick, and taking us down to as low as 50.9 cent. Okay, so if we take into consideration our current performance, right, the high point over here in April and the low point that we had down in June, then we actually put a Fibonacci retracement tool on there, and we're able to predict out some key levels for us and where we should be anticipating things to go next. Here we can obviously see that the very first target, the 1.618, comes in at $2.86. The 2.618 comes in at $4.32, the 3.618 comes in at $5.78, and the full 4.236 extension comes in at $6.68. Now, those targets are associated with the current performance, which means that the lawsuit continues and we don't see that close by the time the bull run finishes. Be that win, lose, settle, doesn't really matter. As long as that lawsuit is around, I think the limitation is going to be based on the performance that we've seen so far, and therefore the bull run should potentially end at around $6.68, which, you know, for many people is pretty much a good win anyway, and we should be experiencing some significant gains going further forward. So I think if the bull run does continue and we actually see the lawsuit finish, come to an end between Ripple and the SEC, then we do have a fib that runs from previous all-time high and bear market low that takes us up to $15.91, okay? So that would actually represent about 1,278% in gains. So significant gains could be made if we do see settlement or win, lose, draw. It doesn't really matter. We just need to see the lawsuit completely get closed, put to bed, and then everyone can move on with their lives, right? And that's what we're waiting for, right? And obviously there's lots of different details going on out there, and I'm sure many of you guys are already familiar with everything that has been going on with the SEC versus Ripple. But the point of this video, guys, is to really talk about what we see going on. If we just take a look at the current performance, then $6.68 seems to be that area that we should be aiming for. Now, obviously, the recent pump today takes us from an interesting support level up towards our 50% retracement zone. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. And the other thing that we can acknowledge is we are overbought on our daily. Not too much of a problem. We can see that we started to lower this down a little bit. And again, we can be up here for a while anyway. So at some point, we will take that momentum out. And it doesn't mean that we have to drop the price massively either. We just need to see that momentum drop, okay? But what we're going to do now is actually jump over to the advice.io dashboard, and we're going to analyze the underlying value of this cryptocurrency, XRP. And if you're not familiar with advice.io, there's a link in the description below. Check it out, completely free. Sign up, and you're going to be able to get the same level of detail. And it updates every single day, 24 hours, right? And the artificial intelligence, machine learning, basically gives you more detail that you can normally get from a chart and helps you understand if there are problems at a fundamental level, things with liquidity or fear and greed, your profitability, all of that kind of good stuff. So let's take a look, right? We've got Ripple XRP here. I'm not sure why they called it Ripple XRP. It's completely separate, but there you go. That's neither here nor there. XRP, B3 rating. So it's pretty neutral, but it is almost falling down into the lower tier, right? Basically, Advice rating system runs from A1 through to D, okay? So it's in that mid-range, the B range, right? So it's okay, not the best, and there's a few problems that we should probably acknowledge, right? So as we come down, we can take a look at the fear and greed index for XRP is in a rating of D, which means that there's extreme fear in the market for XRP right now. And this could be problematic if we find ourselves coming up against resistance, because there'll be heavy selling pressure, and not just from 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗧. So obviously we have to acknowledge that there is, of course, extreme fear in the space for XRP. But this is pretty much being led because Bitcoin is undecided as to whether it's going to go past its 786 area on the charts, 57.5k for those who are unfamiliar. And if it does push past 57.5k and get that closed candle up there, then that's actually going to signal in, pretty confident space. And then I think a lot more retail investors will be more happy to actually invest in cryptocurrency again. I think everyone's waiting to see what Bitcoin does next before they're willing to jump in. And therefore, we're adding to this fear that's in the space right now. Is Bitcoin actually just creating a bull trap, or is it actually going to continue to the upside? That's what we're waiting for. So it's not, it's very actually understandable to see so much fear in the space for XRP amongst many of these other cryptocurrencies as well. But there are some other things that we also have to acknowledge. The 𝗕𝗓𝗪 ratio, this is a C2 rating. So again, very bad, not the best. Basically the 𝗕𝗓𝗪 ratio is your liquidity. So obviously for XRP not being listed on some exchanges, that obviously has an impact on liquidity. And basically if there are some decentralized exchanges that are also having some issues with liquidity, and this is going to obviously compound the issue when it comes to fear as well. So there are some liquidity-based problems for XRP, but this is not just limited to XRP. I don't want to stress that enough. It is across many different altcoins as well. So there are many altcoins that are experiencing the same level of liquidity-based problems, okay? And therefore, buying and selling does become a little bit more difficult, and we have to just acknowledge that. Now, we don't really know the underlying reasoning why these select cryptocurrencies like Cardano's ADA, XRP, for example, are having such liquidity problems when other assets such as Harmony One have no issues whatsoever when it comes to liquidity. It feels almost like there's something going on in the background that we just are not aware of just yet, but I'm sure in time everything will become clear. So it's important that we acknowledge that buying and selling XRP is quite difficult right now, not only just because exchanges obviously haven't listed it or delisted it, and there is obviously problems also elsewhere in terms of liquidity. So as we come on down, we can see the moving averages have also been affected by the recent pullbacks that we've seen in September. So again, the self-fulfilling prophecy that September is, of course, a month of pullbacks or corrections, and obviously everyone anticipating that, selling their bags at the beginning of the month, actually causing the pullback. And as a result, the moving averages are obviously affected, and therefore we have to obviously acknowledge that as well. Okay, so moving averages are currently at C2, and we are looking to bring that back up. Now, this is where things get interesting though, guys, because although there is some fear and greed issues, so extremely fearful right now, and we have got liquidity-based problems and there are moving average-based problems, the profitability is an A1. And again, that's not difficult to understand considering it was sub 10 cent not that long ago, and it is well over $1 now and has been much higher. So ultimately, to acknowledge this as cryptocurrency has performed well, it has, right? Has performed better than some as well in the space, even though we have seen the lawsuit get dropped and we've seen billions of dollars wiped out from retail investors courtesy of the SEC, right? Because they're doing a stellar job and all that. Now, the other thing that's really important, not just beyond beyond just the profitability and the return on investment, is the Sharpe ratio. The Sharpe ratio is an absolutely critical metric to be watching and understanding, right? The Sharpe ratio is your risk-reward ratio. And here we have an A2 rating, the second best rating that this platform is willing to give, right? And this is polar opposite to what you see from a fear and greed index, right? We have a sentiment that's incredibly fearful. We have some liquidity-based problems, which compounds that fear. But actually down here, we have a risk-reward ratio that says the rewards outweigh the risks. Okay, so the rewards but holding XRP outweigh the risks of holding XRP. Well above the 50-day average, this artificial intelligence machine learning is actually saying you might want some exposure to XRP. And that goes completely against the sentiment of the market right now, where it's incredibly fearful. And if I translate that into simple terms, that's buy the fear. This is the kind of fear that you buy because people are willing to sell XRP at a discounted rate. And this artificial intelligence is basically saying you might want to reconsider that because actually you've got better chances of reward than your risks right now, with an A2 rating well above the 50-day average of that Sharpe ratio. So everything's looking pretty good from a Sharpe risk-reward ratio perspective, from profitability point of view. Peak end value demand's nice and steady in a neutral position. So you really only have two issues. There is liquidity-based problems, and there's an unreasonable amount of fear in the space. Couple those two things together, and you could actually start to see some interesting downward trends. That being said, that's the kind of fear, the kind of dip that you want to be buying, at least in my opinion. I'm not a financial advisor, nor is Chris, so it's important that you do your own research. This platform is open. You can go ahead and sign up and get into all of this data. It updates every 24 hours. The artificial intelligence completely unrelated to any humans. And basically, it just runs the algorithms and it tells you the data as it sees it. It's not going to be telling you anything other than what the data is suggesting. So this actually gives you a pretty good representation. It has been right more times than I can count as well. So if you're not signed up to advice.io, link in the description below, check it out. You won't be disappointed. Right, so obviously now we have good understanding, guys, that there is fear in the space. There's liquidity-based problems, but the Sharpe ratio is saying that the rewards outweigh the risks. So let's jump back into the charts now. We have a good understanding as to what is going on from a fundamental understanding the data point of view, right? The underlying data for XRP from advice.io. So on this daily chart, the other thing that we just want to acknowledge before we drop down to another level and really look at the pump that we've been having today is a cup and handle, okay? So basically there's a cup and handle here, there's a cup, and then here's your handle, and this basically then pushes us up to the previous high that we had way over here in April, okay? So this cup and handle is about 60 to 70% accurate, and it's something that if it does actually complete all the way through, would take us back up to the high point that we were back in April, okay? That takes us past the 618, the 702, the 786. These three key areas coming in at $1.40, $1.53, and $1.65 respectively, okay? So those areas there are absolutely vital. Those are the areas that we're going to be battling through majorly, and that's going to be a lot of resistance in here. You can see that we're rejected from that 618 just here, not too long ago at the beginning of September, but also we can see all of this activity where we're really struggling to get past that area once again before we really went into that correction to the downside, right? So we know this is not going to be an easy battle, but that cup and handle does look like we are going to be pushing past it, and I'd like to think this is going to be October, but its timing is always the hardest thing to gauge. No one's ever going to get that right, but I'd like to think it's October, could go into November, but I am anticipating some pretty good runs here with XRP in the coming days, weeks, and months. Okay, so everything's looking pretty good from this daily chart. Good cup and handle, taking us up to the $1.96 zone. Okay, so now let's jump down into our hourly, right? So we have a good understanding that we've got some good traction on the daily. We have some interesting targets that we're going after. And we obviously were consolidating down here around that $1.07. That was both a resistance and a support line for quite some time. And we've started to move up today. Now, we are, of course, bringing this back down. We obviously came up a little bit towards our 50% area of retracement. And obviously from here, we are now pulling back in line with our stochastic that was overbought. And we're trying to now go down into the oversold area. Right, so now if we throw that volume in, we can see good volume coming in on the way up, okay? That is counter to what the artificial intelligence is saying, by the way, because what you'd normally see under an extreme fearful situation is a decrease in volume. So we've had a shift and a change right here. Now, what's causing this, I do not know. I haven't had the chance to really dig into XRP for the last few days, so there might be something going on in the background that I need to catch up on. If there is, let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know what's going on there. So we have had an increase in volume, which is not what the underlying data that advice dashboard is saying. But obviously on the way down, we're also seeing that sentiment change. The volumes are decreasing whilst we're decreasing the price. That's exactly what you want to see in order to protect the price before the next step to the upside. So it could be that actually this artificial intelligence that gets updated at midnight, so just another 3 hours from now, is going to completely change that sentiment from an extremely fearful situation to maybe even a neutral situation or greedy situation. So things can change quite rapidly within the crypto space, but I'll be paying attention to advice dashboard tomorrow to see exactly what that artificial intelligence thinks is going to happen next. Taking a look at this right now, I anticipate that we are going to pull back. I think we're going to lose some momentum. We have an option here to kind of find support on $1.12 or maybe just down to this lower area of about $1.10. Okay, that would be a pretty reasonable area to fall back to, find support, and then move on up, hopefully past our 50% retracement zone, and that comes in at our $1.23 area. Okay, turning that into support before continuing that growth to the upside. Overall, do expect a little bit of volatility on the smaller time frame. The artificial intelligence obviously does indicate a reasonable amount of fear, so we have to be cautious of that, even though the volumes are not necessarily suggesting so right now. It'll be interesting to see what the advice dashboard comes up with tomorrow to see whether or not that sentiment is shifting and changing at a rapid pace, and again in line very much so with that Sharpe ratio, the risk reward ratio is definitely in your favor right now. The exposure to XRP is something that you might want to consider. Obviously, make sure you do your own research, and there's no one who's going to make that decision for you. So make sure you do your own research. I cannot stress that enough. That being said, though, everything's looking pretty good on that daily, right? We are, of course, targeting $1.96 as part of that cup and handle, and everything on that kind of traction seems to be playing out quite nicely. I'm going to leave the video there, guys, but hopefully you have found this useful and informative. If you have, then do go ahead and hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.